Welcome back to The Peaks, everyone, our latest 33 Voices interview series showcasing women entrepreneurs. Every week, we're profiling an inspiring woman founder who's going to share 3 stories about building her business and how those experiences made her stronger. I could not be more excited to introduce my good friend and the queen of sleepwear, Ashley Merrill, the founder of Lunya. Ash, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Before we dive in, can you give everyone who may not know an introduction to Lunya?
Yeah, so Lunya is, we say sleepwear for the modern woman, but the idea is it's our take on reinventing the sleepwear space. Currently, you'll see lingerie and that like frumpy traditional PJ set, and we really felt like there was a market there that was fresh for reinvention. So that's really what Lunya is all about.
I could spend the entire interview talking about how much I love it, but I won't do that. Can we dive into that first story of why you even decided to start Lunya?
Yeah. I mean, I say, a lot of things factored in. It wasn't like I had one aha moment, really. For a couple of years, I had been feeling like it was a neglected space based on personal experience. So, my experience was that I was wearing my husband's oversized pajama shirt and his boxer briefs, and it really had me thinking, there's got to be something better. Why can't I be this comfortable and have something cuter? And so that had been in the back of my head, but I really wasn't, that wasn't what ultimately caused me to do it. I'm a conservative person by nature. I really sat on the idea for a long time, taking a leap. Didn't even know where to begin because my background was definitely not in fashion. And then I think maybe I've told you this story before, but, at one point, my husband and I decided to begin to build our family. And when I found out I was pregnant, it was sort of that, it really helped push me because I felt like, hey, I've had this good idea for a long time, but if I don't do this now, when am I going to ever do this? When I have 2 little kids running around, it's going to be a lot harder then than it is now. And so that really helped push me into it. And I will say, though, that even at the moment I decided to get into it, it's pretty unglamorous. It was me sitting in my office by myself searching on the internet. I mean, it's not like you decide, okay, I'm going to pull the trigger today, and then, you go close rent and you hire employees. It wasn't like that at all for me. For quite some time after deciding to take the plunge, taking the plunge only looked like me sitting in my office by myself working on my computer all day, every day. So it definitely was a bit of an evolution getting into it. But that mental shift of me saying, this is what I'm going to spend my time on now, that was still quite a big one. So.
And then how did you organize your days once you did that? Because it's really like a black box.
I mean, the whole process felt like a black box. I've had a lot of people, email me or reach out to me since I've started the company and ask me how I got started. How did I navigate my way in a world of fashion that I wasn't familiar with? And I would say it's very overwhelming. I was overwhelmed all the time, but it really came down to starting small, right? So I broke down the tasks into things that I felt like had to be accomplished first, and started. I mean, you'll even see me now. I post on Facebook like, "Hey guys, do you know anyone that has this?" Or I asked people. I think it's amazing when you reach out to your network how. Somebody might be offering to connect you to somebody, and maybe that's not the person that ultimately is going to help you, but they'll connect you somewhere else. And it all sort of leads you down a road if you're willing to get, to help push yourself down there. And so for me, it was really a lot of asking for help and being really inquisitive as I was learning.
That's such a great piece of advice that you gave me a while back, is to say yes to every connection. Can you share an example of what came out of you saying yes?
Sure. I mean, actually, the funniest thing is one of the first people that helped me on my way, I was shopping. I was out at a little boutique near my house, and one of the girls who was running the shop, I was telling her, I just sort of was putting it out into the universe. Hey, I think I'm going to try doing my own clothing line, sort of. And she looked at me and she's like, hey, I may know somebody that could help you with this. And I remember thinking, this is so weird. Like, is she going to randomly know somebody that's going to actually be helpful? And it was one of those first experiences of me saying, yes, you know what? Yes, introduce me to her and let me meet with her. And I did, and it was incredible because it was one of those yes moments that when I look back in hindsight truly got the ball rolling. So
Before we dive into the next story, I do want to touch on your time alone for just a couple of minutes, which actually lends to another really great piece of advice that you gave me about the importance of doing every job in the beginning because it helps you hire people. And then once you do hire them, you respect what they're doing versus being like, there's no way that took you that long.
yeah.
Why was that critical for you?
Well, I tell you what, it wasn't something I did intentionally. It was for lack of having a team, you start to do everything. But I do consider it to be one of the gifts of the way that this whole company came down. And I think that, through the one of the challenges, you don't know what you need. And so for me, as I began the company, I didn't know, I'm going to need someone to help run production. I'm going to need someone to help with fulfillment. I didn't know that, and I did have enough work for all of those people. So I did all of those things. And I would say, as a consequence, I learned the hard way on almost every single thing that I did. But it did help give me a nice broad knowledge base and also respect the things that I didn't know. So as you start to bring in people that are more focused than you are, they tend to do a better job going deeper, and the product improves, the brand improves, everything gets better when you start having people that are getting to be a little bit more narrow around their area of focus. But having someone like me that's driving the company that is totally a generalist but has some sense of what good looks like in the various categories, even if I can't get there as well as the person that I've hired, is helpful because it makes us have more knowledgeable conversations.
Who was your first hire? What role did you hire for first?
I hired another generalist. So there was a girl, Jasmine, and she's not with us right now because did you ever meet Jasmine?
No, I didn't meet her.
Jasmine's great, and she actually came to us from Lululemon, and she's not here at this point because she actually had a baby, so she's raising a little one. But she was incredible. So she was someone who could jump into an area that she had no knowledge and figure it out. And that was, full disclosure, when I hired, I said to her, this is what it's going to be like. I'm not going to tell you, you're not going to have a narrow job description. I don't know what tomorrow is going to look like. But if you're hungry and you're interested and you're detail oriented and you're kind of a doer, this is going to work out great. And she was all those things and more. So she's somebody that I still talk about here. And she really rose to the occasion. She helped run this company when I was out with kids. And so she's someone who has also done marketing, production, HR. She's run the gamut with me in the early days.
How did you know she was the right fit?
I could have been wrong. There wasn't a clear answer to it. I got the luxury of starting with her part-time. And so we sort of grew together over time. But I'll tell you, if you were to look at her resume, you would have never thought she was the right hire. She had been a store manager at Lululemon. She was a person with really good values, though, and really good work ethic. And as I got to know her, those are things I began to trust over time. And so I always knew she was going to do, as good a job as I would trying to figure it out. And so it was okay. It wasn't like I had the answer and I was withholding it from her, or like there was some, I somehow knew something better than she did. She had to get comfortable with the idea that we were both figuring it out at the same time. But as I began to trust her and see the caliber of her work and her thought process, that became a much easier process.
So all of that stuff was really behind the scenes. You guys didn't have a line yet. What happened when you actually did produce your first line?
Yeah. So, getting to that first line was, oh my goodness, it was so tricky. The first line, I'd say, took us roughly 10 samples on each piece. So maybe we had I kind of think we had around 10 pieces that we released with first time. And a typical sample process might be 1 or 2 sample rounds. Samples are super costly because they involve redoing patterns, buying a lot of fabric, having a fitting, then revising it. And every time you're doing that, you're paying a pattern maker, you're paying a sewer, you're doing all this. So 10 rounds for each of the 10 pieces. You get an idea of how long and how expensive and how ridiculous that is. And so that was really what went into us trying to figure out how to do this. And I think, in hindsight that you sort of look at it and go, wow, if I could have just hired somebody that was expert in this could have saved me all this trial and tribulation. But as I said earlier, something that I reflect on constantly and I'm thankful for, as now it's more like one or two pieces every time, or one or two sample runs. So it was a long road. I mean, we also on the website, what's interesting about us is we're a manufacturing company as well as an e-com online based company. So there was this sort of, we had to create this product that we felt proud enough to release with. We had to have a website that looked like the brand we were trying to build. And then we had to make sure it all worked, right? So on the back end, when somebody goes through and checks out an order, how does that work? What does that look like? How do we communicate with customers? There were so many things we didn't know. And that to some extent, in order to learn what you don't know, you just have to start. So what we did initially was we put the site up in beta, and I just told all my friends and family. And I'm so grateful to them now because I'm really unimpressed with those initial pieces that we put out in hindsight. But I'm grateful for their support in the early days. And, they jumped on. It was a password protected website. So they kind of went on and they had to figure, kind of weed through all of our quirky product descriptions and figure out what we were trying to do. And that's kind of what it looked like.
What are some of your favorite stories from that time? Do any stand out to you?
Well, the other story I would say would be about our initial actual live launch. It was funny because I was actually posting a Facebook post just to thank some of the team for working so hard and helping make everything work while I was pregnant with my second child, and I was really late in the game on the pregnancy. And I posted on Facebook and I said, hey guys, I just want to thank you so much for working double time while I've been out. It's so incredible. And it was to Jasmine and a couple other people that were on the team at that point. And I was like, I really appreciate all the hard work. And then everybody read that, and some of the spouses of the employees were like, awesome, she's launching the company. And so they all reshared the post that I did and started tagging Lunya. Now, mind you, the site was in beta. And so, and I was going into labor. This was literally, I was in labor. Gosh, no, this was, I'm trying to remember what kid, whatever kid it was. So I'm in the delivery room, and I remember telling Mark, I'm like, I just meant to say thank you because here I am kind of incapacitated the past few weeks, but it's like everybody's sharing. I feel like I should just ride this wave of everybody talking about it and put the site live. And so that's what we did. And so I just remember it was like I gave birth to two different, babies at the same time. We put the site live on accident, and then, and I had my child at the same time. So it was crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's one heck of a day.
Super, super accidental. It was kind of funny in hindsight, but
I love that you mentioned, riding the wave, because a friend was just telling me actually in one of these interviews that when you're working up to launch, you think it is the hardest thing ever. Yeah. But what you don't know is it's going to get 100 times harder after you launch. Yeah. What happened after you launched?
Not a lot. It's not like you put the site up and suddenly everyone's clamoring to get their order. It's quiet, right? I've already asked all my friends and family to buy things. So you're getting a couple orders a week. I mean, I wasn't driving any traffic. I wasn't, like I said, this was a fairly unplanned launch. So I got a couple orders and we find a lot of bugs on the site. It's not that exciting when it goes live. So then you have to figure out how to build your business, right? So what you've been doing before was you're building a product that somebody might buy, beginning to set up the brand, but you have no business because a business requires something that you're going to sell, but it also requires people to buy it, So that piece was it was sort of that was the moment when I had to begin to learn what that looked like. So it's still something we learn. It's, even as a team, the whole thing is we're trying, and that's something we talk about as a regular value at Lunya, is making sure we're learning frequently, because sometimes there's this tendency to get in areas that we're comfortable. And I think this idea of kind of maintaining that early day mindset and constantly going, okay, I failed, but I'm going to grow. Okay, I failed, but I'm going to grow. It ideally, if we can continue to have that be a core value, would be something that would make us better and better over time.
What are some of the experiences, 6 months after the accidental launch where you just had big lessons?
You know, I would say in that 6 months post launch and all the way up to today, one of the best experiences, is beginning to build the team, right? Because in the early days, as I mentioned, we're all doing everything. As you start to build the team, you start to, well, excuse me, let me go back to that. In the early days, when you're all sort of doing everything, every morning you wake up going, do I really want to do this? Should I be doing this? Is there anybody that really wants this product? Is there potential here? You basically are questioning yourself all the time. And then for the team, the small team that you have to be like gung ho, like we're going to win. It's going to be incredible. But those moments of self-doubt that you wake up with and you sleep with every single night are hard to overcome. I would say, that's like that pushing the heavy ball up the hill. Once you begin to build a team and other people feel inspired by the vision and they can begin to make it their own and add expertise in their area, the ball really gets rolling. And then you don't have those moments where you wake up so much going, am I doing the right thing? Am I not? Like, I don't have that thought. I haven't had that thought in a long time. And I think that's like 1,000,000 pounds off your shoulder to be like, yes, there's potential here. I'm an incredible team. If anybody's going to be able to do this, it's this team. Having that sort of mindset it's been like 1,000 pounds off my shoulder.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
As we focus on the build theme, I'd love to dive into two of my things just as a consumer of the brand.
Yeah.
You guys are really adamant about taking care of your community. You see it in the newsletter, you see it on social, and if anyone has the opportunity to go into the store, my mom and I kept talking about it for so long because it was like everything was just shut down for us to be there.
Yeah.
Why was that so important, of course, now, but specifically in the early days to develop those evangelists?
Yeah, I mean, my perspective is at the end of the day, we're solving a problem for this particular woman, and she's everything to us. She's the person that's going to be, I want her to love what we're giving her. I want her to love how we make her feel, and I want her to feel important and confident. I think so. That comes. That comes at you in a lot of different ways. That comes at you from a product direction. It comes at you from a customer service. Also, the way you feel when you enter our showroom, how we talk to you. I think it's hard because it's one of those things that's sort of a general experience that you have with that brand, but it's really just about we really respect this woman that we're serving, and we want her to really value what we're doing. And so, I mean, you got to experience it firsthand, and I think those women, we need them to be evangelists because at the end of the day, we want to serve them really well, and we want them to believe in the value of the product and the service we're offering, and we want them to tell their friends.
What are some of the things you did with those community members in the early days to really demonstrate the mission to them? Because a lot of e-commerce brands have that lag where you get on the site and I'm like, wow, that sounds really cool. And then I'm like, oh, I got an email. So I just switch off.
Yeah. So I'll put it this way, in the interest of being candid, and honest about it, I'd say sometimes we've gotten it right and sometimes we haven't, right? So sometimes when we knew we did a product that we weren't proud of and we found out after because we got some feedback from customers, we had to make it right. And that looks like different things. In some cases, it meant we had to replace a product for somebody. In some cases, it meant we literally had to pull, and this has been painful. Remember, as a small company, you're not making money. So when you have to take a product that you spent a ton of money developing and then take it back and reimburse your customers, it's so painful to do that. In some ways, as the company gets bigger, it's easier to do that. But we've had to do that. And we did that as a very young company a couple times because we're like, you know what, is this product really standing for the kind of brand we want to be? And we made the hard decision that it wasn't. And we just had to eat it a bunch of times. It was horrible. But and another way that it looks is, more recently we get customer feedback, and it really gives us an opportunity to grow our product line. So, and again, to better serve our women. We've got a bra right now that sells really well. It's a bralette, and we got a number of women that said they loved it, but they wish that there was an option for them and they needed some more support. So kind of that that feedback point gave us an opportunity to get to work and help solve their problem. And that's lovely for us, because whenever you can create something that you know that people want, right, before you even get going, that's incredible.
Really glad you mentioned the expansion on the line because it's grown so much. But in the early days, it was, of course, a lot slower
Oh, yeah.
adding in those new pieces. Can you tell us about that process and when you knew it was okay to add a new one?
Yeah, I'll tell you one thing that's interesting as a business leader is that when you admit that you don't know everything, you often get a lot of people that come to you that tell you how to do everything, and sometimes that's awesome, and then sometimes you have to, you'll try it that way, and then you'll learn that it's not. And the reason I mention this in answer to that question is we initially started designing this Lunya products one piece at a time. And it was something where it was only one piece at a time because I thought I couldn't handle more than that. I was already so overwhelmed designing each piece. And then as we got in people who were experts or designers or, people that were had a background, I tried to defer to them because, frankly, I hired them to be experts, and so I always like to give the experts a chance to go and then see if that, and then reevaluate. And so what was interesting for me is that we did a piece by piece development cycle, then we moved off of it into a more seasonal approach, and we've since sort of backtracked a little bit and gone back to piece by piece. And it's always hard because in the process of doing that, it means from the consumer side of things, it kind of looks weird. Okay, we're coming out with a bunch of pieces. Now there's one piece. It's kind of hard to get a feel for it. But for us, it's that process of going, okay, we're a fashion company, so we should do what fashion companies do, and they come out with seasonal collections. But then we had to take a real critical eye to that and go, but it's not totally fitting for us because we're not a trend-based company. And there's a trend element to that, but there's also just really it's much more about comfort and creating these real winners. And so we felt like, if we focus back on doing piece by piece, the level that we can get each piece to is going to be much better because we're much more focused on it. So when we develop new pieces, that's changed our cadence a little bit. But when we think about it now, when we're creating pieces, we're trying to do that where in areas that we feel like we have gaps or areas that we've gotten a lot of customer feedback for us that, hey, we'd love to see another short or something of that nature. So we're trying to sort of be a combination of reactive to what we see people wanting and then be innovative and thinking about things that people never even knew they wanted. And sort of to that end, I think that it's the quote, I can't remember, that Ford quote about if you'd ask people in the early days of Ford, if you asked people what they would have wanted, they would say a faster horse. It's tricky because there's a fine line of people know somewhat what they want, but then there's also a certain amount of things that they don't know that they want them and because they never even knew it was a possibility. So our job as a company is to sort of serve both those interests. And when we create pieces, we're really thinking about it from that angle.
I love that you highlighted the way that you guys needed to find what was right for Lunya, not what fashion companies do, not what small businesses do, not what startups do. Because a lot of times, especially in this whole age of I'm going to be Instagram for X and I'm going to be Uber for X,
Yeah.
you just follow a model and then you realize a year or two in, oh, surprise, this actually doesn't work. What
Yeah.
was the process like for you, whether it was with product or another part of the business, to say, no, I'm going to chart my own path. I don't have to do it like other people.
Yeah, I would say most of the time I go the wrong path first. That's been my MO this whole way is I try something and sometimes the first path I had was the right one and then I'll try something else and then I'll almost need that compared experience to realize that actually I was on the right path the first time. It's just sort of like understanding how you work as a person. I've noticed that's so individual. Some people are super intuitive and they hit it right and they're comfortable with their decisions the first time. Probably because I don't have the background in fashion, I've been a little bit more subconsciously choosing my decisions. And I would say that idea of being critical but being open has been really helpful for us, kind of figuring out as a team, hey, like, let's be comfortable to go down a path. Let's be open to saying that we were wrong, and then let's go ahead and figure out how we improve on that process.
I love that, and it goes to every stage of
Yeah,
your
sure.
business. I want to close with one thing that I learned today, and I'm going to tie it back to build on the power of imagination in business. When you started Lunya, you imagined up a world where sleepwear was viewed differently.
Yep.
Now that's a reality. How do you continue with that imagination?
I mean, I think we've started to look at Lunya as more than just okay. It's more than just sleepwear. We think about it. Yeah, I mean, we think about it as it's solving a gap in this woman's life, and we've even realized that it's beyond clothing at all. Right. So a lot of people will come to me and they'll say, "Why would I buy sleepwear? Why would I spend $100 and something on a pair of pants when I can wear my sweats around the house?" And it's sort of interesting because what we've realized is it's not a story about why you need to buy sleepwear. It's a story about you being worth it. And I think for us as a brand, we've had to really reimagine our purpose in a woman's life to being a lot more about that story, which is about letting women go, hey, you feel fine buying that $250 cocktail dress that you're going to wear 2 times out of the house because that's for other people. But you won't invest in something that's going to make you feel better every single day. Sort of like take a hard look at that. And so as a company, we've realized that, you know what, maybe our mission goes way beyond just sleepwear. Maybe it's much more about helping this woman to feel worth it, and that it's not just about other people. It's about how she feels.
Just kidding on the last question because of your answer. When you mentioned how your customer feels, that's something I wanted to touch on really briefly too, because as I've shared before, I was in the queen of elf pajamas, never thought anything about sleepwear until I learned about Lunya.
Yeah.
And I did have that experience of every time I wear it, whether I'm getting on a plane and I'm nervous to go to a meeting, or I'm
Yep.
doing an interview, or I'm just around the house, I do feel something and I do feel different.
Yep.
Every single company is trying to figure out how to make people feel, because
Yeah.
that's why I always come back despite being a 22-year-old
Sure.
who, probably wouldn't spend very
Right.
much on clothes. How
Right.
have you guys made people have that emotional reaction?
That's something we're very focused on now. So I'll say it wasn't where we started. We didn't realize that was the place that we needed to be focusing our attention because we didn't realize that was the problem we were solving. We started out focusing on sleepwear because we felt like, hey, this is the true concrete problem. Like there isn't great sleepwear on the market. But when you start to delve into it and you realize, oh, there's like a lot more here. There's a lot of reasons that are getting in the way of this woman feeling okay to buy this that actually don't have anything to do with sleepwear at all. Then as a brand, we understand, okay, we have to change and broaden our marketing message. So we've got a few things that are coming up that are going to be amazing. One thing that I'll say is our teams, we've got a great creative team, and they're very focused on how to visually tell that story. So we're cooking up a couple things that I think will be great on the video side, maybe even like some more installations that people can interact with in a cool way. That'll make more sense in a couple months. So we're trying to think out of the box about it because like I said, it wasn't something we've been spending a lot of time on. It's something we've more recently realized that we need to focus on.
I love that as a way to close, because it really does show that had you not taken that first leap, you would have never even known.
No, yeah.
That, like, you would have been started out like, oh, I'm going to design new sleepwear. Now
Right.
I'm going to totally change how half the population feels.
It's fascinating. It's truly fascinating. I mean, I'd say that yeah, sleepwear figures into that. The other thing that's fascinating is even just being a mother now, and that I'm on like mom forums on Facebook, and hearing how women talk about themselves and their bodies, and how they just a lot of times they just don't feel worth it on a daily basis. Some of the moms, particular ones that are stay-at-home moms, just they don't really even get dressed in the day. They don't. That's like the forgotten part of their wardrobe. They're like, it's kind of where they wear the things that are just like old, or it felt like it's sort of like that problem emerged as my life has kind of built up around me. I'm seeing this message echoing on a lot of different sides of my life, and it became really apparent that it was something that people need to talk about.
This is perfect. I can't thank you enough for sharing all of this and diving into the different stories and the different lessons to really demonstrate what it took to get you guys here and actually have a real product that people are wearing and
Yes.
out in the world.
Yes.
Before we go, what's the best way for everyone to A, stay up to date with you guys, and B, check out Lunya, see what all the clothes look like and what you guys are about?
Yeah, I definitely suggest checking out our website, joining our mailing list. But we're on all the social channels, right? So I'd say Instagram, Facebook, those are the best places to stay in the loop.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.